to strap in and get ready. The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Metrics, and Whisperer.
G'day everybody, welcome back to another Insight NRL Show. You've got Brain, Metrics, and Whisperer in the studio tonight. A bit of a different episode, boys. We're getting maybe out of our depth a little bit here, but we are avid NRL fantasy players, and we've played for many years, and we thought, you know what, let's reveal our teams and let people pick them apart. Matrix, how confident are you feeling right now that you're not going to get absolutely slandered online?
Oh, mate, I get slandered online regardless of what I do. The only person that doesn't slam me online is Harm Saleh and Sevilla Havili. So, they're big fans of my work. I know I gave them, I think it was 100% of their YouTube highlights last year. So, yeah, look, I'm excited about this.
Should be good. It's going to be fun. Josh, you've obviously done pretty well in fantasy at different times throughout your Supercoach career, I guess we could call it. But different kettle of fish, isn't it, fantasy?
Yeah, so the intro for our podcast says the leaders in NRL Supercoach, which I firmly believe. I think the three of us provide unbiasedly the best content there is for Supercoach, but very much stepping out of the realm. I've had one good year, which was a couple of years ago. You had a pretty good season last year, and Matrix is here for vibes as always.
I won my cash comp.
Oh, sorry.
I won
$1,200, thanks.
Chuck that in the bio. Chuck that in the Instagram bio. But in all seriousness, there seems to be like a weird divide between Supercoach and fantasy. I love both of them. We'll have more fantasy-driven stuff this year. So if you guys are avid Supercoach followers, I think you need to open your ears. We may not be able to provide much insight on players, but scoring and stuff, if you're wanting to get involved with some projects we have at Insight, then this episode might be able to help you out.
Yeah, we've got some exciting stuff coming. We do have a bit of a cross-platform NRL competition, I guess you could call it, is the best way to describe it. We'll have the details coming to you very soon, but it's like a multimodal version of the World Cup for those of you that competed in the Supercoach World Cup, except it's going to be 4 different NRL fantasy platforms. You've got Supercoach Fantasy Dream Team from Sports Deck. If you've never heard of them before, it's very similar to Supercoach, but a different scoring method. And then, of course, the NRL mixer halfway through the year with the men and the women. So we're going to put those 4 competitions together. So if you think that you are the king of NRL fantasy or the NRL fantasy world, this will be a competition you want to jump in. And we thought, you know what? Let's just release our teams and we'll have a chat about where our heads are at, day 1, day 2, after the NRL fantasy app, or not app, but the website has finally opened. So I'm looking forward to ripping into this one. We're starting now in reverse order like we did. Josh is first, then Matrix and me. So I'll kick off things with my fantasy team first, and you guys can rip this one apart. And I'll give you my initial thoughts. These episodes will be a little bit shorter, obviously, because we don't do the deep dives in stats that we normally would for Supercoach, for obvious reasons. So let's rip into my team to kick things off, eh? As you can... Sorry, Matrix, what was it? Thanks, Matrix. That'll do. That's the end of the episode. Thanks for watching. Obviously adjusting as a Supercoach player to different positions and different priorities, Josh, is the biggest thing, isn't it? Obviously we're looking at different players in the fantasy world based on the scoring in comparison to Supercoach.
Yeah, absolutely. So a try is only worth 8 points in fantasy compared to 17 in Supercoach. Try assists are worth 5. I believe they're 12 in Supercoach. Line breaks are 4. They're 10 in Supercoach. I don't need to go through all these, but the big ones are tackle breaks. They're worth 3. Forced dropouts are worth 2. And offloads are a pretty big one as well. So we're looking for more of those base stat guys. And you'll see throughout our teams in Supercoach, we're very, very heavy. All 3 of us are big believers on big at the back in terms of fullbacks. But in Supercoach, your wing fullbacks don't necessarily need to be the biggest overall scorers. You look at guys like Payne Haas, Isaiah Yeo, Mitch Barnett, Terrell May. Like, these are the guys that are going to be leading those average scores. Apart from guys like Cleary, they're the standouts. But probably the big adjustment, boys, is kick meters. You get, I believe, I had the scoring up earlier. So kick meters is 1 point for every 20 meters. So if a halfback kicks for 400 meters, they'll get 20 points in game, and run meters as well. So in Supercoach, obviously, we get the 1 point per hit up, and we get the 1 additional for hit ups over 8 meters. Whereas in fantasy, it's 1 point for every 10. So if a prop forward runs for 200 meters, that's 20 points. You have some of those games, boys, where Tedesco has, 10, 11, 12 tackle busts and 300 meters, and they absolutely pile up the points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So let's rip into my team. We'll keep these short and sharp. Aaron Clark, luckily in fantasy, has the hooker jewel. So for us, obviously, we've been talking about Aaron Clark a fair bit, Matrix, over the last, couple of weeks, at least since Tohu Harris retired. I think there's an opportunity there for us to lock in a guy that's going to be a pretty consistent scorer. For anybody who wants to know the statistics behind NRL fantasy in general, but this can actually help your Supercoach game if you're a Supercoacher, go over to footystatistics.com. And you can actually filter things like scores at position, over a certain amount of minutes, under a certain amount of minutes, with or without a teammate in the team, which season as well. So it's incredibly in-depth, probably one of the best statistics websites I think we have in the NRL world at the moment in fantasy anyway. And we can see here Aaron Clark in games at lock over 40 minutes, which I think is safe to say he's going to get this year. He averages 50.1 and he's priced at a 34. So you can start to kind of do the math here and look where you're, first of all, going to get your points, but secondly, where you're going to get your cash. And Aaron Clark, for me, is a bit of a lock at hooker. Anything to add, boys?
Can you filter by games for the Warriors without Tohu Harris playing?
No.
Not quite.
Cool.
No, just we can filter games for the Warriors without Tohu Harris playing for another player that we have in our teams that we'll talk about very soon. Keaon Kalamatangi, middle edge duel, 692K. Keaon, for me, with Cam Murray out, is near a must. I think there's every chance he does start at lock this year. Maybe Tallis Duncan gets some edge minutes there at the Rabbitohs while Cam Murray's out. But Keon's priced at a 49, and as we can see here, he averages 58.4 at lock last year. And if we filtered that by games played above 60 minutes, he averages 67.4. We all remember last year that big run that he went on, Keaon, where he was pretty much an automatic captaincy option every single week, Josh, wasn't he?
Yeah, especially in fantasy and mixer as well. All three of us had okay success with him at the back end. And then just comparing those numbers as well, it's probably good for our Supercoach audience to get an idea of what, I guess, an elite score is. Last year, Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo both top averaged with 64.8. So obviously, yeah, much, much lower than the Supercoach world where we're looking at guys that are pushing 90 to 100. So, anything mid-50s is great. Anything 60 plus is exceptional, and only 5 guys went above 60 last year in Jerome Hughes, Payne Haas, Nico Hines, Cleary, and Yeo. So when Brain's giving you these numbers and what they're priced at and what they're averaging, keep in mind that anything averaging with a 50 is quite good. Yeah,
absolutely. Terrell May, no brainer. Don't even need to talk about him. You just pick him and you just say thank you, basically. 670K. I don't care if he was 900K. I'd still buy the bloke. I think so. I haven't done the stats on him because I didn't think there was a point. But yeah, absolute automatic captaincy option every single week if he's getting 50 plus minutes at the Tigers, I'd naturally think. So Naf White.
I was going to say, just on Terrell May, price at a 48. If we're looking at over 50, that bumps up to a 62.4. And I just said that Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo top scored with 64.8. So him over 50 minutes is 0.6 points off being the best player in the game.
There could be every chance he ends up being the best player of the game if they just let him off the leash this year. So that could be exciting. So yeah, he's an automatic pick. Naf White, middle edge jewel, handy little jewel there. 415K as well for Naf White. Kind of not a bad spot. Priced at a 30. And then we look at the games there where he played lock last year. He averaged 36.4. So there's about 6 to 7 points worth of value there. And we were talking off air, Josh, about the fact that we talk 10 points of value in Supercoach being, kind of like the marker, whereas 10 points of value in fantasy is monstrous when we're looking at it based on the pricing and the scoring. Yeah, considering, like we said, Cleary's averaging, 64, 10 points of that is, nearly, 20%? Yeah. 10 points of value is huge. Yeah, for sure. My edges are Mitch Barnett and Tom Gilbert, both also middle edge jewels. I wanted to try and find as many middle edge jewels as I could in that position, especially on the edge. We know that the middles definitely in terms of the scoring are prioritized and usually are the favorable options. If we look at Mitch Barnett in games, so you can filter again in footy statistics, games without Tohu Harris over 60 minutes last year. Mitch Barnett averaged 60.9. There are a couple of games there in this 39 and a 33 to win the season as well, where he did kind of cool off a little bit. We saw that in Supercoach 2 Matrix. But Mitch Barnett, if he can, obviously without Tohu Harris in the team, he seems to take on the lion's share of the workload there at prop. Do you see this happening again this season?
Yeah, I think I can see another huge year from Mitch Barnett. I'm going a different way with the Warriors when I have a look at them, but just opportunity from them losing basically their two most dominant forwards. Like Barnett was great with Tohu and Adam Fanua-Blake in the side. So, yeah, you'd expect Mitch Barnett just to have a huge year again.
And we had a look at Tom Gilbert, didn't we, boys? I don't know whether I have the stats here. I don't. Oh yeah, no, I did. I brought it up. So Tom Gilbert at lock when he played over 50 minutes in 2023. Obviously, he missed last year. Averaged 50.4, and he's priced at a 36. So there's 14 points of value there. It's just monstrous for Tom Gilbert. I mean, I'm still a little bit cautious on the comeback from injury there, but I think having the full preseason is going to be big for Tom Gilbert. So. I don't mind locking him in there with the duel at 500k. That's pretty handy where he's priced. Nathan Cleary, captaincy option every week, pretty much a no-brainer. Best player in the game in fantasy level, with obviously with the kick meters that he gets in game. He's the only kicker. He will definitely be the only kicker this year, you'd naturally think. So he's going to rack up probably 20 to 25 points in kick meters every single game. And then Cam Munster, 589k for a Cam Munster. We look at his stats from last year, if I can find them. And he averaged 44.1 throughout the years with no real filter set on this. Now, if we look at the difference in his kick meters from 2024 to 2023, you'll see he averaged about 120 kick meters per game, but there's a lot of games there where he went under 100 kick meters when he came back from injury at the back end of the season. Whereas in 2023, we saw the kick meters through the roof. He averaged 231 kick meters in 2023 in comparison to the 120 in 2024. So there's automatically an extra 10 points right there. 5 points minimum. If he just drags that average back up 5 points per game. So there's value of 5 just in his kicking alone if he gets back to the average, Josh. Do you see that happening, obviously, with, after the injury now coming back? He's had some time, a good preseason.
Yeah, of course. So obviously hampered by that groin. Was very, very mysterious on return time last year, and then obviously went for surgery. Basically as soon as the season was done for Melbourne, and they didn't go to the grand final. So, they did go to the grand final. So had a bit of a shorter preseason, but Cam Munster priced at a 42. Like I said, we go back to 2023, averaged 55 points a game. So we talk about 13 points of value being massive. I don't expect a 55, but even if he averages 50, it's still 8 points, which is, monstrous in fantasy, as we've said.
For sure. Nice and cheap, bit of a fallen gun, so to speak. And we don't often get them in fantasy. We see Tino coming back at around 700k this year. So thanks to fantasy for pricing him nice and high.
Yeah, we probably should preface that. In Supercoach, pricing is all automatic. It's done off average. If a player has a really, really poor season, great for Supercoaches. But in fantasy, there's a lot of human, I was going to say human trafficking. That's not the right word. Human intervention.
This ain't that podcast.
Check out the Patreon for more human trafficking podcasts. No, the pricing in fantasy is there's a lot of human intervention in it. So I was saying to Braino off air, and fantasy players, I'm sure you'll remember this. A couple of years ago, Tyrell Sloan had quite a quiet season. Before being given the keys to the Dragons fullback position, and we all thought that we were going to get him at a very, very nice price, but they manually tinkered with him and made him almost untouchable. So, yeah, you look at a guy like Tino, they've priced him at what they think he's going to average. So, not much value in him, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll pick him up when he drops a bit, hopefully. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 510k, centre wing fullback duel. I'm picking him half for the duel, but also for the fact that there has been rumours. I think you broke them, Josh, or you didn't break them, but you found them. You found the talk about it anyway, and there would be potentially a chance that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck could find himself on the wing this year. So if we filter based on the wing, he averaged 46.3 there, and he's priced at a 36. So there's 10 points of value on RTS straight off the bat. I think there's a real chance this could happen. I think it was seen on his Instagram story saying potentially a new position this year, which is, coming from the player himself. I don't know whether he'd just go and throw that on his Instagram story with hundreds of thousands of followers without there being some form of merit to it, Matrix.
Nah.
Do you think that this is potentially going to happen? Can we see a bit of a shuffle there?
I mean, I think if he is named at fullback, he's a lot at winger. He's sorry, I don't want to put fullback out there in the universe. We'll have 2023 all over again. But I think if he is named at the wing, not only will he enter a lot of Supercoach teams again, he'll also enter a lot of fantasy teams because stats don't lie. So.
Yeah, for sure. Jack Howarth is an interesting one. 450k. I've got him at centre at the moment. Edge and centre duel is real nice to have. For me, I think the big upside for Jack Howarth is to look at the first half of the year. So if we go back and we don't filter by position over 70 minutes, you'll see he came off the interchange for the first probably 15 rounds, missed a few games in there, didn't really do anything of relevance. And then if we go and filter above 70 minutes, so full games that he played, and then we filter that at centre, he averaged 38.1. A couple of downside games there, 38.1 priced at a 32. And then you'd naturally think there might be some natural progression after his first kind of decent full year in first grade for me. I think that there's every chance he plays a bigger role there, Josh, at the Storm. We were talking about him off air a little bit, and it's one of those kind of ones where you've got to like the player and see the upside in taking that next step in their game rather than just looking at the numbers.
Of course, and another big thing to mention with fantasy as well that we haven't touched on, in Supercoach, we always talk about guys with these buys in the first 3 rounds that we can hold off on because we can pick them up a week later than expected with that 3-round price bubble. But in fantasy, they're pretty ruthless. It's a 1-week rolling average. So, yeah, we do miss out on Jack Howarth in round 2, but, price at 32, we can see the value there. He's going to go up in price round 1. There's a couple of guys on your bench as well, Braino, that can definitely come in and fill the hole for Jack Howarth in round 2 when he has that buy. Does have vibes, and I was very, very surprised with those run meters for centre. For him to be pushing that north of 150 is exceptional. Big body, gets a little tackle breaks. It's been said a million times on this podcast, a million times in every podcast. He's reportedly on 500k. Now seems to be the time that they're finally using him in full flight.
Yeah, Bellyache's finally given him a crack. We know you've got to really kind of do something good to crack that team. And 4 tackle breaks a game, 163 metres averaged when he started at centre and played over 70 minutes or played a full game. So that's huge. And for me, I think he can take that next step this year, Jack Howarth. For obvious reasons, Iongi's in my team. Look, we don't get a look at it. We don't get a free look. This time we take the cash from round 1, and I don't think you can pass up on that this time.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny, boys? Like, we sit here.
The narrative completely changes, doesn't it?
Not at all for Supercoach. But when we opened the fantasy app yesterday, I guarantee he was the first player that we all picked.
Yep, has to be. When we don't get a free look. So,
but you hate Iongi.
No, I like him. I like him as a player.
The raps on him, I guess, similar to like a Dylan Edwards in terms of work rate, and we know what he gets through, and that's so great for fantasy because we get those return meters. So if Iongi, he's priced near bottom dollar, if he's even 70% of the player Dylan Edwards is, he could be there all year, genuinely.
Yeah, definitely good work rate. Obviously, in Supercoach, you're looking for more attacking statistics to rack your score up, whereas in fantasy, you can find those base stat beasts. And there are no better base stat beasts than Jarrell Skelton. 500k, wing fullback. You already kind of pumped his tires up a little bit, Josh. Well, I should say a little bit. I mean, like a lot.
I got the Hawk Tour soundbite. So
yeah, you did get the Hawk. Yeah, that's it. We haven't done the Hawk Tour soundbite to anybody else but Jarrell Skelton this year. So priced at a 36, averages nearly 42 on the wing in games over 80 minutes in his career so far. He's only had 5 of them, so it is a small sample size. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's a slam dunk pick, but when you've got a guy like this at the Bulldogs who got limited opportunity and came in different points, he didn't string 2 games together until he strung 2 games together around 20 and 21 in 2023. Other than that, he got 3 separate random 1-round opportunities in 2024 and went 241, 304, and 170 run meters. That's an average of 218 run meters per game when he starts at wing and gets 80 minutes in a game, which we know he's going to get this year at the Tigers. That, for me, that's insane. 4 tackle breaks, 4 tackles a game. The negatives, though, unfortunately, Matrix, are the big kicker, aren't they, really, in fantasy? You do get penalised a lot on missed tackles and errors and penalties. Those are probably the big ones. You've got to avoid those players that have poor discipline, and hopefully Skelton can fix up his defensive lapses because he does average about one and a half missed tackles a game.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's a bit of a slam dunk if he gets that spot, and he's a gun. He's fun to watch, and I think that definitely us Supercoach guys, when we're picking a fantasy team, you're going to pick players that you want to watch. So
yeah, that's true. And I'm a Tigers fan.
This is less like we don't take fantasy overly serious. We probably will this year, but like fantasy for me has always been a platform where if I'm 50-50 on a player in Supercoach, you bet your bottom dollar the other one's going in my fantasy team. That could be Skelton this year.
That's our dream team. Usually this year, I think. No, dream team I never take seriously. I think I ended up like maybe 100th or something. But there's only about 3,000 people that play that platform. So I pick the players that I've missed out in Supercoach or can't afford. I go and pick them in dream team just for fun. But yeah, Skelton's in my team there. I think he's a great pick. Latrell Mitchell, I've paid up for Latrell this year because I'm going to go all in on Trell having a massive season. Everybody on social media is bashing him. And, whenever we put something up about Latrell Mitchell on social media, it doesn't matter what it is, you'll get people criticizing him. You'll get people saying that he's injury prone. You'll get people saying that there's a suspension in round one when there's every chance it gets over or it gets counted towards the All-Star game, and we'll have him for round one, hopefully. For me, he doesn't need base to score well. And we saw this last year with Latrell. I won't go through his stats. I don't have them handy, but he's a guy that can score you 100 in fantasy. And with the goal kicking on top of that, that's something I'm not going to say no to. My bench is a little bit weak. I don't like it that much. I think when we see Josh's team, you'll see probably a better looking bench. But I've got Pete Mamazelis as my backup hooker. And with the bench, I think it's really important to make sure you've got depth in terms of positions. We talked about this before offline, before we started the pod, but having that depth and being able to cover every position in fantasy is really important. You do only get your first 4 interchange players as your scorers, but you can pick any position here. So all 8 of these guys could be any position if you want. You can pick 8 middles on the bench. Whilst it's not recommended, that's what we're talking about here. So getting depth in terms of position. But Pete Mamazelis is an interesting one, 319K, priced at a 23. And in games where he played over 40 minutes, whether it was off of the interchange or actually starting at hooker, he averages 38.4. So I'd naturally think, even if he is competing with Humphreys over at Rabbitohs, I think we can see that Mamazelis is going to get 40 minutes, or he'll get more minutes than Humphreys. So for me, if I can lock in a 38 from my bench hooker priced at a 23, that's pretty easy coin there that I potentially don't even have to play every single week based on my team. So he's on there. Luke Metcalf, Matrix. Have you got him in your team? Please tell me.
Yeah, he did my team for vibes.
Vibes are important. I think he probably takes on a lot more of the... What do you think, Josh? Do you think he takes on more of the kicking now that SJ's gone?
Yeah, I was hoping that you gave me more time to try and stall and pull up some stats, so I've got something to rely on. But no, you would imagine the 6 and the 7 do matter in that Webster system. And if he is taking more kick meters, and he's one to watch in the trials, like if he's taking more kicks in those trials, and that's something that I look for more in fantasy, is who's taking that 5th tackle option, because it can make up, 20, 30 points of your scoring. If Metcalf's taking more of the infield kicking, then absolutely, he's definitely becomes an option. And I'd probably downgrade him on the half that I've got in my team that isn't there. So we'll wait for him.
Yeah, for sure. Sandon Smith, bit of a no-brainer. Should kick goals, 250K half. Absolute lock for me. Very easy pick. Jack Bird, edge centre duel, 362K. I put a post up earlier yesterday on X about the fact that in Supercoach, Jack Bird averages 70 odd when he starts at lock. Now in fantasy, we have to look at these stats, and they're just as impressive. In his career, when he has started at lock between 2022 and 2023 for the Dragons, he averages 54.1. And Jack Bird, ladies and gentlemen, is priced at a 26. So he could potentially double his output this year based on the way that he's priced. It could be the easiest pick of the year, pending those knees hold up. I know he's got rheumatoid arthritis in his knees. He's had ankle issues the last couple of years. He's had ACL repairs. He's had a sternum stabilization surgery, which I was not aware of. Same surgery as Campbell Graham back in 2019 or 2018. So he's been through it. I know there are question marks around his fitness and his availability, but Josh, I think you mentioned he played 78% of his games over the last 3 years?
78.4% of games in the last 2 years. Did play the full season in 2021 and 2022, and then 23 and 24 obviously had half a season. But most importantly, he said rheumatoid arthritis, but what about rheumatoid vibe-itis? Jack Bird looking very vibey, lost a bunch of weight. Benji's high on him, and of course he's a Tiger, so mandatory we have to carry at least one of them in our sides.
Yeah, I was trying to find an appropriate soundbite for that rheumatoid vibe something, and this probably covers it. Yeah, that's no good.
Matrix would enjoy it. When you guys met me 3 years ago, no dad jokes, none.
Actually, that's true.
As I slowly hang out with two men north of 30 when I'm not, I'm slowly incorporating some more dad jokes into my vocabulary.
We are proud. You have come a long way in the dad life. So Jack Bird, no-brainer for me as well. Obviously, the last 4 picks are all kind of cheapy picks. We hope they get picked. If they don't, we'll pivot. Robert Toya for the Roosters, Tom Amone for the Bulldogs, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys, and Vaimalga for the Warriors. that will probably change. I really don't like how thin my bench is, so I'm probably going to have to retweak a few things, but I do love how strong my starters are. I might just need to level things out and drop maybe a gun somewhere and try and make a bit of cash on the bench. But that is my team. So, guys, we're obviously going to be filtering through my team, obviously Matrix's and Josh's over the next few days, and you'll see them coming out on YouTube, so stay tuned for them. We'll be doing a little bit more fantasy content coming through, but it'll all be on YouTube. Obviously, our bread and butter is our Supercoach. That's where we do our thing. That's where we're proven to be good. But fantasy is going to be fun this year to just throw our teams out there and put ourselves out there a little bit and see how we go for the season. Guys, thanks for watching this one. You'll see the next two team previews coming up very soon. We'll catch you then.